On this episode of Straight Up No Bullshit.
We're all victims of it, myself included. Even though I'm aware of all this nonsense, even I'm a victim of all this stuff. We could resonate it at such higher level.
Yeah, it's not just knowing it and learning it. Is that I actually, if it resonates with me too.
Is that we have to be a contrarian to all of these things that are thrown our way by all these people that are so-called experts. Like
consciousness. What is consciousness? What is it? And how does it apply to us in our daily, everyday lives? And why should we even be talking about it?
Welcome to the Straight Up No Bullshit, the Don Handston Show. Our hosts are going to push the limits, but create an environment where it's safe to uncover the crap that holds you back so you can survive the mediocrity of today's life. And they'll be admitting and revealing their own experiences so you can learn the skills and attitude you need to be who you are. No bullshit. Warning to all listeners, if you have thin skin and get offended easily by harsh, direct, or somewhat offensive content and language, then this podcast may be overwhelming. However, we believe pulling your blinders off and viewing things from a real perspective may feel invigorating and may be the very thing that may cause you to expand your capabilities exponentially. Now here's your hosts, Don and Markus.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the No Bullshit, the Straight Up No Bullshit Don Handston Show with myself, Don Handston, and Markus Loving as hosts.
Hey, Don, what's happening, brother?
Everything good. Everything
excellent,
good.
Excellent. Welcome to all our guests and listeners, and we appreciate you being here. Today, we got a pretty exciting topic. We're going to kind of go a little deep on some things and share some different perspectives on consciousness. What is consciousness? What is it? And how does it apply to us in our daily, everyday lives? And why should we even be talking about it? So, Don, what are your thoughts on it? I know you've been kicking it around a little bit.
Yeah, so consciousness, this conversation may not, resonate or connect with everybody. We all have, as I was kind of putting together some notes, looked at what Marcus's ideas were. It's kind of funny because we have little contrarian thoughts, which is fine. We all have different thoughts, so we're going to get a couple different perspectives. So consciousness is the levels that we resonate with. It's not. It has nothing to do with education, anything that you've learned. Really, in my belief, what it is it's got to do with awareness. Okay, and the awareness, my awareness is a little bit different than a lot of people because my awareness is more of a spiritual awareness, where a lot of people's awareness, if they do have awareness, which a lot of people don't because they've been clouded and brainwashed, right, but their awareness is more on based on the mesh universe, and that's matter, energy, space, and time. It's where we are today. So a lot of people will try to reason and find reasons why it does and doesn't work, why people are able to resonate at a higher consciousness level. And as far as consciousness, have you ever noticed that when you speak with people, okay, sometimes things are very easy for you and they don't get it, they don't understand. It's just a difference in consciousness levels. Same thing when other people resonate at a much higher consciousness level. And I'm going to use for an example here in the mesh universe, for sure, a person like Elon Musk, okay, he resonates way higher than everybody else. He's able to create, I don't even know how much money, and do things at kind of a simplistic basis as far as he's concerned, where most people don't resonate at that type of level. Now, I can't explain where he's at, but he's very good at the mesh universe. He's able to acquire, okay, things and create things and create a lot of mess, right? A lot of stuff, a lot of businesses, right, a lot of money, a lot of income. He's able to do a lot of things here that probably very, very, very few people, if any, can do what he does. Now, in my opinion, my consciousness is more on a spiritual level. So like my accumulation is more of theta, right? It's more of thought. It's not the accumulation of things here in the mesh universe. It's the accumulation of thought, okay, on a spiritual level. So I think a little bit differently than most. But like, for instance, here on Earth and here in this lifetime, what means a lot to people is what we acquire based on the decisions and what we decide and choose and how creative we want to be. Now there's a level of consciousness to that, to where we're able to acquire what it is that we want and what we need and require here on this earth. But in my opinion, okay, what we acquire here on earth, let's say you acquire a lot of money, okay, it's great here on earth. You can go by and do and whatever, and it's a great life and everything else. But I think when you acquire thought and you have a higher consciousness, you're really here for better purposes than just to acquire a whole bunch of things and money. And my belief system is, if you're helping a bigger cause, if you're helping people, if you're helping the earth, if you're helping just the communication level out there for people and things and everyone to thrive. It doesn't matter if it's nature, if it's people, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're doing that, okay, you're more on a theta level. You're more trying to acquire as much thought and create as much power, which translates to our next life. Okay. We all, I'm sure a lot of people think it's one and done. We're here and then we're gone. No, that's not how it is. But if that's how you think it is, that's great. But the consciousness is resonating and understanding things at a level beyond where the average person is. You're thinking about things. It's kind of like if you're playing pool. I don't know if anybody plays pool out there. When you play pool, to really be a really good pool player isn't focusing on that shot. It's seeing 6 shots ahead, okay? And if you see 6 shots ahead, you already know that you got the first 5 shots and you know where the cue ball needs to be in order to make that 6th shot. So it's really it's thinking way, way, way ahead, but it's also understanding things at a different level.
Sure. Well, you're bridging kind of 2 gaps, I think, there
Okay.
with your description.
Sure.
You're looking at it is the, most people, like, if you open up Webster's dictionary and you look up what is consciousness, it says the quality and state of being aware, especially of something within oneself. Okay.
Sure.
Or the state or a fact of being conscious of an external object, state, or fact. But in reality, I think it's those things and then some. And what's interesting, I think it goes beyond that, though. You're talking about how consciousness and you want to get to a higher level. Some might call that frequency, but you get to a higher level so that we can make a more of an impact in the world.
Sure.
And I would pose that everything we do impacts the world, because there's our individual consciousness, and then there's what I would consider a universal consciousness. And it's very difficult to say, well, where does one end and the other one begin? Because it's the same analogy of, a wave and the ocean. Where does the wave begin or end? And where does the ocean? They're blended together, kind of thing. And so in reality, consciousness is really looking at so many different aspects of who you are and what you're doing and where you're going. But it's really understanding and having that connectedness. It's being connected to those higher thoughts. It's being connected to those around you. It's connected to the things happening around you. It's being connected to the experiences around you. And what's kind of cool is I've been doing a lot of research on this. I've been probably studying consciousness and metaphysics and so forth for a couple of decades now. And it's interesting because there's many different paths to look down. But the thing that I think is rather interesting is that it's really the interconnectedness of all of it. And I think that part of the challenge that people have getting connected and getting their consciousness where it needs to be is because of a lot of the things that go on. I mean, if you think about it, we've had in different times and eras in our lifetime, we've had great knowledge. We had going back into the 5000 BC, you have Egypt, and the great knowledge and thing that came out of Egypt. And then suddenly it got lost or it pushed away, and then we got into Greece and Socrates and then, the Great Revolution in India and different places around the world. But it almost like it ebbs and flows and different things have happened. Give you a perfect example. We had the age of enlightenment just before like 100 BC and going into that, a lot of knowledge. And then there was a lot of strife, and then we hit the Dark Ages. Dark Ages lasted for like 1,000 years, but then we had the Great Renaissance. in Italy and artwork and thought and movement, and what's interesting is that back in about the 1800s, there was a big movement for spirituality and wakiness and the new thought movement. And there were so many things happening, but then what happened? We got into World War I, and we got into a place of fear and of division and mistrust. And that took us, we got out of that, and boom, we were back, we hit the Great Depression, and then World War II, and then we got the Korea conflict, and then Vietnam, and then, but in between there, like, in the 50s, people think of Happy Days, those, the great, it was a great time. And then, we had the 80s, but then we got pulled into the Cold War. So there's all these things that pull us back, whether people think it's orchestrated, whether it's controlled, whatever the thought process is, now, then we got through the 80s and 90s, and things seem like they're going great, and then we got the war on terrorism, when the towers came down, and then we kind of worked our way past through that. And then there's these pandemics, and, some would say that we're in a culture war now, the division of, wokeness and, environmentalism and transism and all this other shit that's going on to divide us up, where is if we can really raise our consciousness and our thought process, and we can bring that about, it starts within ourselves. It starts with ourselves, and it lifts us up from there. It was interesting. There was a Chief Seattle back in the 1800s. He was a very well Indian chief, and he warned the consequences of destroying North America's wilderness and really focusing on emphasizing the interconnectedness of all things. It's interesting that, the things that he was sharing, he warned us about. And I like a lot of the ancient traditions warn us about and give us the track to run on, the thought processes, the subtle traditions. And there's a group of people or thought processes, scientists, whatever, they want to discount it all. And I think a lot of time that's what causes a lot of the strife, is if we can raise our own consciousness and then affect those around us and get to a higher level, we can change the world. I mean, we talked about then Dr. Emoto's work with the water and how they heal the lakes and so forth. It's going on the same process.
Right. Well, a lot of things, I could have interrupted you 1,000 times during your thing, and you're very well versed in what you're speaking of. Okay. But you spoke of knowledge. Okay.
Sure.
Knowledge is external. It's learned or taught, right? That's fine. Okay. Wisdom. Okay. Wisdom. You already have it. It's something it's internal. Right. But the only way you can get to wisdom is you need to strip the layers of the onion, right? So I'm gonna
interrupt you for 1 second there, because I agree with you. Wisdom is there. However, sometimes you need that knowledge to spark the memory of the wisdom to get to that point.
It's called inspiration, right? So you use different words and vocabulary because you have a little different look. Sure. I use it at one thing. You're educated. I'm not. I'm self-educated, school hard knocks type thing. But the bottom line is, I agree with you. But all these times and all these things that have gone on, right, are done for one reason, and it's to cloud your awareness. Once I can cloud your awareness, I can fill your head with stuff which shrinks down your knowingness, shrinks down your consciousness. It shrinks everything down, and it makes you less capable, less able. Now, once you can figure out how to get through that stuff, okay, then I think, like you say, it's another level. Maybe it's another level to get into even a higher consciousness, to get connected with things beyond the things that we think we can connect with. So, as far as consciousness, I think we resonate, and it's something that we have, but I think that we can raise our consciousness, and I think that we can help others raise their consciousness, and basically through stripping through the layers of the onion. And one of the things I was talking to somebody yesterday about was about, okay, we all agreements. We talked about this in a podcast. Now, the trick to this whole thing is a lot of these agreements are designed to lower your consciousness. They're designed to put up more and more barriers to create less awareness. Okay. And when you're a contrarian, okay, to the agreements, and you would go against all the agreements and you question everything, okay, all of a sudden you start realizing that you're starting to make your own agreements. And once you start making your own agreements, you start reaching inside. Once you start reaching inside, you start pulling out the wisdom instead of the knowledge, not what I learned in school or read in a book or heard this guy say or I saw on a pie. It's what you have inside that you know, which is really the whole reason, like you said, about the actual education, reading and this and that. And all that's designed for in reality, I mean, they want it to indoctrinate you and fill your head with certain thoughts so you could agree with things. But the real thing that we should be thinking about is it should be inspiration. It should inspire thoughts so we can reach in and get the actual information. And a lot of times that actual information is going to supersede the stuff that you're learning in these books. All it did was you read something that maybe was contrarian to your thought, right? And it inspired thought. Like, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I do or I don't, but it gets you thinking on a different level. Kind of like there's more than one way to skin a cat, okay? But you have to, all of that consciousness comes inside, but you really need to open up your awareness in order to get to that. Now, everyone, even if everyone was completely aware, different people still resonate at different levels. And I know that I listened to the Greg Braden guy that you told me to listen to. And,
Sure.
you know, he talks about the magnetic goal, you know, the axis on the earth and everything else. It's not that I don't agree with that, but what I think is that we all try to make a reason why, okay? A logical reason why these things work here on Earth, okay? And here on Earth, maybe all of that is accurate. I don't really know. But on a bigger level, we have to remember we are spiritual beings. We are capable of all, okay? So the consciousness level at a spiritual being is, I don't even know what that would be, but it's way beyond anybody that's walking around here on Earth. But some people resonate at higher levels. Some people resonate at lower levels. I think a lot of it's got to do with awareness, but a lot of it also has to do with how you're at, where you actually resonate. And some people resonate very high here on Earth, and maybe their consciousness levels are very good here, but maybe in a spiritual world, who knows? Maybe they're high, maybe they're low. You don't know. But there's people on this earth that have super high consciousness levels that probably have little to no money, probably live like very poor levels of life, but their consciousness levels are off the chart. I don't know. I'm going to say somebody like a Gandhi, right?
Yeah, I mean that's true. I don't think one has to go with the other.
Right.
I think it's a personal choice. You know, they choose to live in a certain way. You know, and you mentioned the magnetic fields. You know, I find it very interesting though when they look at, you know, you have these two satellites that are orbiting the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and suddenly there's giant, you know, and basically they're measuring magnetic fields on a every like half hour basis, and suddenly you see all these spikes happening, going, what the hell's going on? And when they correlate it and look at the time of the spikes started happening 15 minutes after 9/11 attack, that lets you know that we as human beings, our consciousness is affecting the rest of the world, is affecting matter, is affecting the world that we're living in. Because let's face it, we've chosen to be here. We have chosen to be spiritual being having a human experience. We're here into the adventures of time and space for a reason. What is that reason? Well, only each one of us can look within ourselves and ask what that is. Mm-hmm. Now, I know this goes against the grain of a lot of people that might be more religious. We've had a few people make comments on it and so forth, and that's okay. Yeah. You don't have to necessarily agree with it. Yeah. But think about it. You know, if this is all, if God created everything, you know, the entire universe, you know, then guess what? He created the you know, the magnetic fields, and he created consciousness. He created us to be able to affect those things. So why not understand those things a little bit more and utilize it to our advantage for the greater good, to make things better? So I find that kind of very fascinating, interesting. But what's interesting is if you think about it, we experience consciousness and connection all the time. You know, we've heard of deja vu, right? You know, it happens to us all the time. You know, maybe you've experienced this where you go to pick up the phone and call someone and they're already there, you know, and it's like, damn, or you call them and they say, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about you. Well, why is that? Because we are connected. And what I love about some of the things that the experiments and so forth that are being done, because people want to understand. Some people have that analytical mind, and they want to prove that God exists. They want to prove that there's a connection. There's a prove that there's a reason behind all of this. So there is communication that goes on at the conscious level. And there's an exchange of energy that's happening between two people. Up until recently, I mean, Western science and modern science, they haven't had a good explanation. They poo-poo it. They say, oh, it must be just, coincidences, whatever. But that's not really true. So it's interesting that when you do have people that have they recognize that something's going on, and then they sit down and say, okay, let's put together some experiments. Let's try to prove these things. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty exciting. It's pretty amazing when you can look at, do an experiment and be like, wow, this is pretty wild what's occurred. So I'm going to share you a couple of them if you'll indulge me for a minute.
Sure.
And back in 1887, mm-hmm. there was a Michelson and Morley conducted experiments, and they believed that there was a connectedness. They wanted to prove that there was an existence of an intelligent field of energy connecting all matter. But unfortunately, when they did the experiments, and they did it twice, some poorly held beliefs and technology wasn't there to actually really prove it. It's kind of like you wet your finger, you put it up in the air, and you don't feel any breeze. You don't feel anything. So therefore, air must not exist. That's the kind of conclusion they came to, which, obviously makes no sense. So then 100 years later, literally 1986, they went and conducted the same exact Michelson-Morley experiment. And this time they had better equipment. They had the Scientific Journal of Nature published the reports that was sponsored. It was actually sponsored by the Air Force. And they duplicated the experiments. And the bottom line is what they found was they were able to detect a field, and they were able to prove that the conclusions, the thoughts that Michelson and Morley originally thought 100 years before was actually in the parameters, and they actually were able to see that this field truly does exist, and that's pretty wild when you think about it. And now, and if for those of you that are inquisitive like me, you can go see that it's actually published in the Journal of Nature, volume 322 in 1986. So if you want to dig in more into that, but these ancient traditions that we innately know, it's like you talk about you have the wisdom and you have the knowing. Aborigines, the oldest living civilization on this planet, all these ancient tribes, the ancient Indians, the Buddhists, they had this intuition, they had this knowing that was there. It was just apparent. It was like we're all connected. We all impact the world. But it's the modernism and the division. I think it's like pulling away from consciousness. It's like turning away from divinity, turning away from God, turning away from wisdom, whatever you want to call it, and saying this is how it's going to be. That's where we get into trouble. That's where we try to force square pegs into a round hole. That's when wars happen, strife and conflict, and the shit that's going on right now in the world. I mean, upside down, left is right, up is down. We don't know what's going on, and it's because people have disconnected. They've disconnected from the consciousness. They've disconnected from the source, and this is what's transpiring. So we have to get back to that.
So to interrupt you on this, and maybe this is getting a little off track, but I completely agree with you. I when I did listen to that Greg Braden, one thing that I did agree with, that I completely agreed with, was that your energy, like let's say we only have a few viewers. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But just by having that energy, okay, and putting out that energy, you affect so many people, even people that have zero contact with you. Now, in my opinion, good always way oversees, evil or bad.
Absolutely,
okay?
Without a doubt.
So now what's going on in the world is basically evil, right? And they're trying to like brainwash people and get people basically to deteriorate. Now, that's working because they're at a catastrophic level. They own the medias, they own all the information. They're impacting a lot of people. But if just a small amount of people get into a higher level of consciousness and put that positive energy out there, it's
Yep.
going to impact so many more people than the stupid media crap. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so the bottom line is, it's very important for people to understand some of this stuff. And like I said, a lot of people are going to look at me, this guy's out of his mind. A lot of people are going to look at you and say, you're out of your mind. Who cares? Okay?
Whatever. Exactly.
What our concept here is to inspire thought. We want
Right.
people to question. We want people to agreements, that the things that they've come along to believe. I want, I would like to open up people's awareness. I'd like people to unveil, okay,
Right.
their true consciousness, because I think a lot of people are at such a low consciousness level. Basically, they're unconscious, okay, and if
Sleepwalking through life.
can strip
Yeah.
away some of those layers, even if it's not a super high level, it's going to be higher, okay, and then it's going to spread. And I think that that's really what our whole goal is to elevate, okay,
Yep.
the energy here on in this world while we're here, right? But
Right.
I mean, we all have different, like Dr. Steve says, we all have different purposes why. But on an energetic level, on a connectivity level, I think that just by putting that energy out, regardless of how many viewers, how many people agree, disagree, just by putting that energy out, it automatically is going to impact so many people.
It is, and I'm gonna take it one step further.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna kind of blow your mind here a little bit.
Go ahead.
It's called quantum entanglement.
Okay.
And it's the connection between particles. So, again, I like to prove things. I like the nitty gritty, the how does it work. So there were some scientists, and what they did was they divided. They basically divided. They wanted to see does matter affect each other. So they divided a photon. Now, a photon is a light particle, right? It's what they think that it's a quantum particle that they think that's what the universe is really made of. And so they took this photon and they divided it into two so that they'd be dealing with the same object. And they created a container and they shot it literally in opposite directions, 7 miles each way. Okay. And what they did was they disturbed the one particle that was, so they're 14 miles away, right? 14 miles. They disturbed this first particle. They called it tickling. And guess what? The next thing they know is that the other proton that was 14 miles away, the opposite direction, reacted the same way as the original one that they affected. Now that's not connectivity. I don't know what is. So visualize a small light ball, and going in different directions. And the reason why it's so important is if you think about, the Hubble telescope has looked into the center of the universe and they've kind of figured out, where the universe began and, the Big Bang theory. And I know that, some people are going to say, well, it didn't happen that way or whatever. And there's just humor me with an idea here. So they this experiment that they were doing in Switzerland, in the University of Geneva, where they did the photons. It was back in 1997. So, and they took this quantum particle and they moved it and they made a difference to it. And why it's so important is that they believe that when the universe was created, it was literally all the matter, everything was compacted, something to the size of a green pea. Right. And then we had what was called the singularity, the Big Bang singularity, where the amount of the explosion and heat, and some of the scientists think it's like a billion, million degrees of heat, and that they expanded it everywhere. Right. So we are all created from that same piece of matter. So the thing is that we're all still connected. And so even though there's a distance between us, there's a term for it, locality, I think it's called, where, we're not in the same location, but yet because we're energetically still connected, we make that difference. So by raising the consciousness, you're able to raise it. Now I know some people are going to, we've had people make comments, creationists saying, they take the literal interpretation of Genesis and say, well, you know what, the Big Bang didn't happen. Well, I want to put this question out to you. Why couldn't God use the Big Bang to create the universe? These are the questions I used to ask myself when we used to go to Sunday school. Why couldn't that happen? Why couldn't both happen at the same time? Is it possible that God created the heavens and earth and every star, planet, element, quantum physical law in between and everything in between to create this amazing thing called the Big Bang singularity to bring life as we know it? Why couldn't it? It's possible. I think so. So regardless of, everyone has their perspective and their way of looking at it. But when you come down to it, it's all the same thing. We're all connected. We're all made of the same stuff. And guess what? When I raise my consciousness, I affect your consciousness. We have this conversation and we affect the consciousness of a few other people and a few more and a few more. And the next thing you know, we can create peace on earth again. We can get things, calm the waves down and bring sanity back to the world, because there's so many people that have so much power that I believe they think they know better. They think if we do it this way, they're gonna we'll make the world a better place. And we all look at it and go, you guys are out of your fucking minds. There's Carl Schwab or whatever, all these people in the World Order and Economic Forum. You guys are out of your fucking minds.
That guy's a douchebag.
He is a douchebag. But as we raise our awareness and consciousness, we will change that.
So I'm going to hit on a topic, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with consciousness, but if somebody's telling you, okay, that this is what you got to do and this is how you got to do it, and there's no options, this is the only way, okay,
right?
That person is not very intelligent, okay, because two people can take two different paths and get to the same destination. Okay,
many paths up the mountain, right? Absolutely.
And so the more intelligent person, okay, is going, or wiser, or whatever word you want to use, is going to be the person that says, this is the end result that maybe this is the end result you're looking for, okay? These are things that works for me, but you have a different way of looking at the same thing that I look at, because we all have different perspectives. It doesn't really matter if you take my way or you take a different way. It's just to get the end result that you need. And it reminds me a lot of this educational stuff, because my kids just finished with the school thing.
Right.
And they had this math. It was called Common Core Math. Okay, whoever put this together is a real Einstein, I'll tell you.
Right.
Anyways, because I'm like a mathematician. I look at this shit, I'm like, I don't know what this means. Anyways, so their theory when they teach this crap, okay, is you could get all the correct answers and get an F. But if you do all the correct work, but you come up with the wrong answer, you can get an A. Okay,
that's absolutely insane. Yes,
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
right?
The kid came up with the number because he works on it a certain way in his head or whatever, and he come up with the number, and he's wrong. But the kid that's following the directions is correct. So it's just another example of clouding up people's awareness. Okay, make them think that they're stupid, or make them think that they're smart because they followed some stupid direction from some stupid examples. And now they're smart, and the guy that comes up with this shit in his head is stupid, but he came up with the correct answer. It's all the opposite shit, and it's designed to destroy us. And that's what pisses me off about this, because we are all, every single person that's got their eyeballs on us today can resonate at a higher consciousness level than where they're currently at. We're all victims of it, myself included. Even though I'm aware of all this nonsense, even I'm a victim of all this stuff. We could resonate at such higher level, but the thing is that we have to be a contrarian to all of these things that are thrown our way by all these people that are so-called experts. Like, I know you want to read in a book to say, okay, this is how it happened and this is why it happened, and you like that because it kind of like
it makes sense. It
sums it up in your head. But I'm the opposite. If I read it, I'm like, okay, well, and then I start questioning it. And I do a little bit of research on it, and then I come up with my own idea of what it really is.
But for me, it's not just, it's not just knowing it and learning it. Is that I actually, if it resonates with me too. So there's a dual piece to it. Some people, sometimes, like you say, I just, if it makes sense and it works, I don't care how it works. I'm going to do it. I'm the same way too, but there's sometimes I'm curious by nature. So I want to know these things. And when I hear this validation from experiments like this. There was another experiment where DNA was actually influenced. And so back in the early 90s, there's this Russian physicist, Wagner Panonian, I think, I'm not sure I'm saying it right. He did this, he distributed these light particles in a vacuum tube. So think of a vacuum tube. There's supposed to be nothing in a vacuum. So he put these protons in there, and he wanted to see what would they do? Would they just lay on all in a clump? Would they disperse? But then they were pretty much out there random. There was no localization to it whatsoever. They're out there. And then what he did was he took some human DNA and added it to the tube, and to see what the photons would do, and kind of challenging the traditional view of matter and consciousness in the universe, of what it is. And what happened was when the DNA was placed in the vacuum tube, the protons aligned themselves along the axis with the DNA. Hello? That's some powerful shit. And then what happened was that once that happened, he removed the DNA, and the photons continued to behave as if they were still there. And it's indicating that this new field of energy, he calls it the divine matrix. And I like that. Some people call it the mind of God. Some people call it consciousness, the field. There's so many different names for it. But the fact that our DNA, who we are, our consciousness can affect protons and affect the universe, it just shows you that we don't need a ton of people. They say positive, negative thoughts. I'm always, some people are down in the dumps, whatever. I'm like, listen, you don't have to be positive all the time. You just got to be 51%. Like you say, if you're just 51% positive versus 49% negative, you're going to make a difference. You're going to get through it. And if we get enough people, and there has to be a ton of people, to have a higher consciousness, and to see that, guess what? These evil people, this Carl Schwab's, these people at core math, whatever, that are trying to dilute our mind and control us and whatever, we can rise above that with a higher consciousness. And we don't have to do a lot of it, but we think together. We don't have to think the same things, but just knowing that we can impact that. We can impact the world in such a way that it doesn't matter what they do. It's going to be nullified. Just a thought.
Yeah. Absolutely correct. The thing that we don't all think the same way, and that's one of the things, and I'm sure I'm redundant to some of our other podcasts, but a lot of people get really offended and affected because you don't agree with them. And I'm like, there's not two people on this earth that think the same exact way. So relax, dude. But when you talked about a 51% thing, okay, I think that goes along with everything. Okay.
Yeah.
It could be a diet, right? It's not what you eat. It's not what you eat some of the time. It's what you eat most of the time that affects you nutritionally.
Right.
It's the exercise. It starts with very small levels of things, and it goes to the things that are extremely important in your life. And you're right. The 50%, 51% is a good idea. It's what you're doing more than not doing is how it affects you. So like, if you're positive, I'd like to see the positive side as close to 100 as possible, but obviously that's not possible with all of the forces out there. But if you're like you say, if you're 51% positive, that's more positive than negative. And I go back to my old thing that I probably said in every single podcast here is nothing stays the same. Either things get better or they get worse. Nothing stays the same. The only constant in the world is change. Okay. And so if you understand that, it's pretty simple. And you can, I think, on a consciousness level, the more simplistic you can get your thinking, the more closer you get to the truth, the higher your consciousness level goes. It's not how convoluted and confusing and your dialogue and your education and you can speak above people. I think your consciousness level's actually gone down, okay? Because you're not able to communicate with people other than your peers or people that did the same schooling or have the same types of jobs or whatever, but they think that they're smarter. So you got a doctor comes in and says, I don't even know all the words that they say. You have this and you have that and you have this and you need to take this and that. Right. What does that mean, dude? Like, tell me in like understandable words. Like, but they think, oh, this guy's dumb and I'm really smart because I just used about 12 words that the guy has no idea what I said. And he thinks he's smarter, but he's actually dumber. Okay. And I know people, the guys, the doctor's going to be like, yeah, I hate this guy, this Don Handston guy. But the bottom line is a really good doctor is going to come in and say, Markus, the cartilage in your knee's been worn down and it's a mechanical issue because you've been using this type of shoe. And maybe if you use this type of shoe or you get this type of manipulation, we can help regain the mobility in that knee and relieve some of the pain. Where some other guy's going to come in and use, these words that either you don't know what they mean or they use these words to make it seem like it's permanent. Like, you have arthritis. Okay. It's just inflammation due to the lack of cartilage. That's all it is. So they want to make it seem as though like it's permanent. So now you're on their payroll. You're going to buy into their surgeries and you're going to buy into all their nonsense. Okay. And that's fine. There's some people that need it. I had a hip replacement. So there's time and there's a place when you need this
there's
stuff.
time. I mean, I had to have heart surgery because, I had bacteria that destroyed a valve. There's a time and a place, but it's just, again, it's if you look at it, big pharma, I mean, they're a money machine and they want to get you on every drug that's out there. I mean, there's drugs out there that they call them forever drugs because you're on there and you're going to be on them forever because this is what the doctors, they're telling you. And it's like, you need to educate yourself. So there's a balance. There's a time and a place and there's a balance. And you have to get to that point. That's why I call it the power of 7. Tony Robbins calls it the power of 7 is you want to surround yourself with things that lift you up, that are positive. You want to put things, things you listen to, the things you read, the things that surround you. Put things that make you happy, bring you joy. Podcasts. Start listening to Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and listen to some of these things that they're sharing, these interviews. I like the interviews because it's like you get to hear from other people and different perspectives and people that have taken the time to become experts in certain fields and are blowing the whistle on, hey, this is not how it is. They're telling you this, but this is not the truth. And they're going to share you why. And then take that information in and listen to it, resonate, see if it feels good. If it resonates with you, that's telling your consciousness that, hey, I'm on the right track. This is going to make a difference in my life. This is going to make a difference in the people that I'm surrounded with. And when we do those things, I think we're going to make the world a better place. And that's really what it's all about. That's why we started this podcast, is two guys just sharing ideas, sharing experiences, sharing things that hopefully make a difference in people's lives. And if you again walk away with one or two golden nuggets that says, I never thought of it that way, and it makes a difference, then we've done our job.
That might change your life. One
away.
idea might change your whole life. But I'm going to give you a contrarian perspective to what you said about if it resonates with you and, continue doing it. That's where social media has created a lot of divide between the people. So I'm a conservative guy. So if it makes sense and I implement it in my life and it works, I'm all in. Okay. But a lot of these other side of the coin people, okay, they listen to stuff, that if you have any common sense, it's completely,
it's lies. It's lies.
It's ridiculous.
It's lies. It's half truths, whatever.
But they resonate at that level because their consciousness has been shrunk through all of the suppression that's gone on. So they're unconscious. Okay, so. So, when you start, I don't even want to get into all these political topics, but when you start getting into all this stuff and they hear more stuff that resonates with how they've been conditioned, right? And how they've been brainwashed, they listen to more of that. So now you got the conservative side, right? And if you're a conservative, you probably love what I'm saying. If you're probably not, you're probably like, screw this guy,
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, the common sense, which isn't so common anymore. So I don't know if we should use the word common sense anymore. But if you're conditioned and you're buying into all this stuff, Joe Biden's the smartest man and he protects us because he opens the border and lets everybody in. Whatever you believe, but so they hear more and more and more of this stuff. Okay. And that resonates with me because that's how I've been conditioned. Okay. Then you got a guy that's more of a conservative person. Okay. and they're more logical. They're more real, right? They're more real. They go based on what somebody's created. Not I like Donald Trump or I hate Donald Trump. What did he do? What did he create? What things got better? What things got worse? You quantify it. You actually have a brain between your ears. But the thing is that when you're conditioned, different things are gonna resonate. Now, on the conservative side, there's really far extreme right lefts. Okay,
Sure.
I'm sorry, rights and lefts. Okay,
Right. Yeah, there's
so
extreme on
even
both
though
sides.
I'm a
Yeah.
conservative, do I
Right.
agree with all of this stuff? No. So it doesn't necessarily mean right or left or right. It's kind of how you're conditioned, right? Some people believe, the pro-life thing. Some people think not. I honestly don't think government should be involved in that. I don't think
I agree. I'm
I
more
don't think it's a
libertarian.
governmental issue,
Absolutely.
right? The economy and our safety, which are the two things that they don't do, are
Right.
the only things that they're there for. Not to tell a woman if she can have a baby or not.
Right.
She got raped and she got to have the baby. Who comes up with this shit? So there's extreme right that I don't agree with either. Okay.
Right.
But you have to have some. You have to have some common sense to even have a little bit
Balance.
of awareness.
You have to have balance.
But whatever information is out there, it's going to resonate to where you've been conditioned. If you're far right, if you're far left, if you're medium on one side or me. So you really have to pay attention to the information that you're consuming. Okay. I just recently, I went on, I was starting to get on the social media because trying to get the message out about the podcast out on the social media a little bit.
Right.
And I'm not real successful. I'm not good with that stuff. So I started listening to some of this stuff, and it starts wasting my time, and it starts bringing my head in all these different directions. And just yesterday, I said, you know what? Screw this. Unsubscribe, 500 times, all this shit. I'm not going to. And I'm like, I could spend my time doing a lot better stuff than this, even though it would help us get the message out. I don't like how it impacts me because there's far right, far left, all these ideas, and none of it. Some of it does resonate with me, but then they're like, okay, you're on our team, so now you believe everything that we say.
Right, and it's not.
I don't like
it's not
that.
about teams. It's about
I don't like that.
You take the information in, just like what we're sharing here. You might like 3 things that we say here, and not like 7 of them. Fine, take the 3 and run with it. That's what it's all about. Again, find what resonates with you and take it and utilize it. And, hopefully, it's truth and experience and roll with it. So this has been a great conversation. We definitely went a little longer, little deeper. No, it's a little longer, a little deeper than we normally do, but that's all right. We're trying to get information across, get some inspiration across, get some betterment across. So, if you liked what you heard here today, please, smash the likes, subscribe to our channel. It helps us. It helps us get the word out there. It helps the algorithms, helps us get found. We appreciate it. Leave some comments, tell us, hey, what you said was great. Tell us, hey, what you said sucked. We don't care either way. Feedback is feedback, and we appreciate all of it. So Don, thank you so much for another great conversation, and I appreciate it. And it's been wonderful.
Thank you to all the listeners, and I want to let you know I love you all.
Absolutely. Love you all. Exactly. So until next time, we'll see you on Straight Up No Bullshit. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to the Straight Up No Bullshit, the Don Handston Show. We hope we enlightened you and expanded your perspectives with our bold and honest discussions about what might be holding you back from being your genuine self. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to the next episode. If you want to know more, go to straightupnobullshit.com. We'll see you next time.